Okay, hello everybody. Welcome back to today's business call. So I've been reading 3 books yesterday. If you haven't tried this is a great thing to do. Do I have food in my teeth?
You're good.
Okay, thank you. I learned you have to ask women, because guys, I have all the guys running the video stuff, they'll be completely oblivious. After 3 hours, I'll have like something on my head and no one will say anything. So so every once in a while I'll try this little thing. Take a nap at around 9 p.m. Then you can literally become a night owl and a morning person at the same time. It's actually an interesting little biohack. I've been reading around about the Milken Institute. So good old Milken, he's worth a couple $1 billion now. Kind of a controversial guy, but he started his day he was in the office. You had to be in the office at 4 a.m. every day, and then you had to work till 8 p.m. And he would eat for 15 minutes a day maximum. He said, I got it down to 3 minutes I could eat. I'm not suggesting you do that, but it is good every once in a while to push yourself to people think the limits of what they can do are very low. And when you read books, if you wanted to meet with Milken, you had to meet around between 3:45 and 4:45 in the morning for a meeting with him, because he got a lot of stuff done. So in that spirit, last night I was reading 3 books that are insanely good. One is about Eileen Ford, who started Ford Models. It's an interesting book about the war they called it the year that Star Wars came out, which I think was 1977 or something like that, is the same year that John Casablanca moved from Paris to New York, and he had started a model agency called Elite Models, which is now famous. And he basically went to war with Eileen Ford, who had Ford Models, and a girl named Wilhelmina, who owned Wilhelmina Models. So that was one book I was reading. Then I was reading this book, Predator's Ball. That's probably the slowest I've ever read a book. Every sentence of that is insanely interesting. It's a more advanced finance book. I wouldn't recommend it to everybody. But if you want to know how the big boys make money, that is like the best textbook I've ever seen. He basically revolutionized capital in the world. A lot of the stuff that you and I are beneficiaries of in terms of access to capital came from Michael Milken. It used to be very hard and Drexel was the name. Now, he did get in trouble. He pleaded guilty and went to jail for a few months, or maybe a year or something. It's interesting. People say he was framed and set up. There's a book called 3 Strikes or something, which is basically how the U.S. government can send anybody to jail if they want to. And so he claims he's basically innocent. But no matter what, a lot of the stuff that, like I said, we are beneficiaries come from this guy, Milken. So that's the second book I was reading. And then the third book, I've read this before, but I was rereading this book. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'll probably interweave some stuff in. I like the memorial he put here on the book. Inspired by Peter Drucker, mentor and friend. So you know that a lot of this business program that we're building off the best, which is pretty much considered Peter Drucker. For the most part, Peter Drucker is the Albert Einstein of business. You can't see there, but I keep 4 of the same book duplicates on my kitchen table there, The Essential Drucker, which if you're new to the program and this is your first time on, you should look in the vault and you can go back over some of the talks that I've done on Drucker. So this book is somewhat Drucker-esque, but it has its own complete angle. So Peter Drucker talks about the 8 objectives of business. If you remember, anybody remember what those are? 8 objectives every business should have. The 2 are the most important. So a little refresher, by the way, you have to remember and memorize stuff. If you want to do big things in life, trust me. People who can't remember things, they're not going to. For example, Michael Milken had memorized 100% of the whole bond market. He knew every single bond on the bond market and their prices, which is very hard to remember because there's a lot of bonds. So I had a challenge for the people who work for me, staff, tomorrow, $150 to whoever remembers the quote, the chains of habit are too weak to be felt until they're too strong to be broken. And it's the same with Peter Drucker's 8 objectives. You have to memorize them. Ben, do you know one? Did you look it up, Mark, or you have
no,
okay?
Innovation and marketing.
Yeah, good. So the first 2, innovation and marketing. You have to have an innovation objective. You have to have a marketing objective. Anybody have any other objectives? And this, by the way, is not just business. This is for charities. My cousin Aaron's here. He's in medicine. This is for medicine. They use this actually for hospitals. Peter Drucker worked a lot with hospitals. So you have an innovation objective. So for our company, the companies that I invest in or chairman on, the objectives are spreading knowledge, okay? So spreading good ideas. That's my knowledge objective. That's my innovation. And so we're innovating. For example, the reason I use the word knowledge, that alone is already an innovation because everybody talks about education, but people don't want to be educated because education is the word that leads with the pain. Knowledge is a word that I believe is closer to the reward. People, when you have knowledge, the money. I'm actually thinking of launching, I've been wanting to launch a fashion brand for a while. So I've been working on some brand that'll have like quotes on them or sayings on them. And one of them is like, knowledge is cash, for example. That's really what it comes down to. If you read these books of these people that have big impact, whether it's financial or not, it starts with knowledge. Education now is a watered down word. So for us, my innovation goal for the business, already there, even the word that I chose is innovative. Nobody talks about knowledge. You don't go to school and they're like, your parents don't go, are you part of the knowledge society? They're like, no, get an education, which basically for most people is a painful thing to do. So that's innovation. Then you have to have a marketing goal. How are you going to spread your ideas? So the way that we market here, our marketing objective is to market using lifestyle brands. So if you know who Dan Bilzerian is on Instagram, he has 10 million followers. He's using a lifestyle brand to spread his message. Richard Branson, his marketing objective was to use stunts. That was like how Richard Branson grew stuff. He jumped out of a balloon, hot air balloon in outer space. That's a stunt. He jumped off the Las Vegas. What was the thing he did where he jumped off? He always does. He dressed like when he launched Virgin, they had a wedding gown company. And he dressed like a woman. That was like his stunt. So he spread it with PR. He's the master of PR. Then you have to have a human resources goal. Talent. You can't make money and you can't do things by yourself. So you have to have a human resource goal. Like, how are you going to build your company? Who are you going to attract? Blah, blah, blah. So that's 4 of them. There's more. You got to have a capital objective or financial objective. You have to have a profit objective. You have to have a social responsibility objective. Is that 8? Did I do all 8? It might be 6. Anybody remember the other 2? No? Anybody? What would be a big objective for a company? Growth, okay. Someone else?
Partners who you're working with.
Business partners who you're working with. Does anybody, Ben, you check the comments. Ben's gonna read out, if you guys have a comment, see if you guys can fill in the other 2. I do know what they are. But I wanna see if everybody here can get all 8. You should know these. These are like, this is what I'm saying about, huh?
Marketing, innovation, human resources, financial resources, physical resources.
Yeah, financial resources I call capital, but you can call them, Drucker calls them financial resources. Yeah.
Productivity, social responsibility, profit requirements.
Yeah. So the 2 extra ones that are, you could have physical resources. So that's like inventory. Or in the case of the business I'm in, since it's internet, it's the website where information is passed. The product is delivered through a website. And then you got to have productivity. How do you take, look, you got this person here, James Franco, Albert Einstein, Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking is actually a great example. If you saw that movie, what was the movie called that that won Academy Award? Theory of Everything. Stephen Hawking gets this disease. It's a demyelinating disease, Lou Gehrig's disease. Herman, by the way, the scientist who works for the company, that was one of his specialties. He studied demyelinating diseases, which basically you have this myelin sheath, and it breaks down, and you get this disease called Lou Gehrig's disease, or ALS. ALS? Yeah. And so Stephen Hawking is productive before he gets this disease. Then he basically gets to the point where he can only, he writes books with his cheek. That's what he does. He like winks his eye, and they've built this machine that basically can write out letters. So think about the productivity. Everybody in this room, you and I. We have Stephen Hawking, who has everything against him, but he's more productive than us. He wrote, I think, 3 books, best-selling books. He's come up with theories that have changed science. Another person, example of productivity objectives, would be Helen Keller, because Helen Keller was blind, deaf, mute, from about, at 1.5, I think 18 months, she got scarlet fever. I think she got a fever, real high fever. That's what happened to her. And then so she's completely blind and lost most of the senses that you would use. Again, she's written more books than all of us. And so she's more productive. So that's what productivity goals are. So this book, so you got to have those, by the way, and you should just write those out for your business, whether you're a brand new entrepreneur, whether you're thinking about it, or whatever you're doing. You should, if I could go back in time, be 18 years old, if I was in college, I would map out my 8 objectives. If I was starting a charity, I would map out, because I got interviewed by Tony Robbins' son, Jared Robbins, and at the end he asked me, what's the one lesson, I can't remember what he said, what's the one lesson you wish you had known earlier? And that's such a hard question, because I can think of multiple ones, but for sure, contender for the top one is, I wish someone at 18 years old had just told me, make 8 objectives for your life. You know, you could everybody can come up with some innovation for their life, some way to spread the word. And for sure, things like financial, social responsibility, all those. So this book expands on that, and he comes up with different analysis. So the best part of this book, I think, is where he says what strategy isn't. So to him, so you had the 8 objectives was Drucker. That's kind of the grandfather. Then this guy, now you have the next evolution. This guy comes out, Lafley, and he says that he likes to think of it a little bit different. He thinks about winning. Now, he says the way to get to winning is strategy. Now, the question is, what is strategy? So the best way, Sherlock Holmes had a way to figure out any answer, he said. He said, I can't remember the exact quote, but he basically said, if you take away all of the negatives, what something can't be, then whatever remains has to be the truth, no matter how unlikely it is. So sometimes if you don't know what you should do with your life, for example, you should just write out all the things you know you want to do. Then you might be left with only a few things left to do. If you know you don't want to be in restaurants, if you know you don't want to be, in finance, blah, blah, then sometimes you're left with like, oh, okay, I'm left with agriculture. That's the only big industry left. So in this case, to figure out what strategy is, you got to ask yourself what strategy isn't. So here's what he says. Here's what it isn't, I mean. So, vision. It's not vision. So vision, I've defined vision as like long-term goals. Like I talk about like one day I'd love to own a basketball team, okay? So that's like a vision thing. I consider goals, in my vocabulary, goals are very short term, like goals you're doing today. Goals are achievable. A lot of people say, set your goals for the stars, but guys like great coaches like Dean Smith from UNC, one of the most winning coaches in history, he's like, I never believed in that. He's like, I liked realistic goals. So vision is like your unrealistic 10, 20-year big vision for your life. So he says strategy is not that, which makes sense. Me just saying I want to own a basketball team is not the strategy to get it. So don't confuse vision. Okay, plan. This is a little confusing. Anybody know why strategy and plan are different? And these are somewhat semantic, but they're not really. A plan is this. Okay, I'm going to get a basketball team, I need to do X, Y, Z. You probably got to make $1 billion. That's one thing. You got to have some friends in high places. Or you have to put, a lot of basketball teams and sports teams are now bought as conglomerates. Like Magic Johnson led a conglomerate of investors to buy a syndicate to buy the Dodgers. Did he buy the Dodgers? Rick, do you know? Magic Johnson? Maybe he didn't pull it off. Okay, so just the step-by-step isn't. And this is why he says it isn't. Plans and tactics are elements, but they're not enough, okay? So here's what a strategy is. This is all you have to remember. If you remember one thing from this book, it's very interesting that he chose this. And I'll tell you why. Where's that? Does anybody know where that Man-Q book is? Can you grab that one, Adrian? It's that economics book there on the bottom. Principles, it's that red one. Yeah, thank you. So let me read you something. And by the way, this is a book we covered in the past. So if you're piecing together, all these books kind of put together the same clue. So this is the guy who wrote, this is the textbook for Harvard and a lot of the top schools on economics. So at the very beginning of this book, he sets up economics here in the very beginning. And he says, see if I can find it. So, page 4, the introduction to this whole book. Principle 1, people face trade-offs. You may have heard the old saying, there ain't no such thing as a free lunch. To get one thing that we like, we usually have to give up another thing that we like. Making decisions requires trading off one goal against another. And who knows the classic economic term for that? There's a way.
Opportunity cost.
Right. So opportunity cost. But opportunity cost is composed of decisions. So this book kind of hones in on this like a laser and says strategy, if you really want to know what it is, it's choice. Now, I'll show you how messed up the world is in not teaching this. What's the opposite of making a good choice? What will making a bad choice lead to 20 years from now when you look back? You made a bad choice.
Losing. Bad result.
Losing. But that's the emotion it builds up. Regret. Okay, so what's the most, I've talked about this before. There's a different textbook on personality types. I have it at my house. I don't know why I don't have it here. I got to start buying all my books in duplicate. But what's the 3 most common regrets of humans? Anybody remember? I've talked about this a lot.
Were you married?
Right, so romance,
Job?
career, and there's one more. If you survey, they surveyed, X amount of people in the modern world. This is what people regret about their life. It's health. That's a good one. It wasn't the third one. Maybe it's the fourth one. It has to do with what you're doing right now. Education. Nikki, got it. Okay. So here's what happens if you invert this. Here's why people have this. Regret is these 3 are the big regrets, which flows from incorrect choices, but it all flows up to here, not strategy, which is why you know how many people win at life? And I'm defining winning as people's own definition, right? Because for one person winning is a Ferrari, for other person winning is a charity, okay? The definition of winning is, I would say, is the minimum amount of these, if you remove sociopaths who don't have the regret mechanism. But the average person, 88% of their day, they don't do anything that's interesting to them. That's what the science says, right? In the modern world, the average person spends 88% of their life doing stuff that is not winning. So if you want to reverse that, not have these, it's not, because a lot of people have vision and a lot of people have plans. In fact, you can go to your friend that has the crappiest life and just test them. Be like, what's your big picture vision? If you won the lottery, what would you do? And people will start being like, well, I'd own a basketball team, I'd like I'd buy a mansion, I'd paid off all my, I'm sure who here honestly has ever thought what they would do if they won the lottery? Everybody. I used to think about that, man. When I was 5 or 6, I remember at least once a month, I would lay on I would get grounded. I'd have to lay in my bed I remember 15 minutes was like a long, it's funny how you're little, how time is weirdly out of sync with reality. It was like 15 minutes on my bed. I remember like watching it, 14, 13, but I would think, what happens if I had $1 million? It's too bad I didn't write down what I thought, but then I'm sure some of you have a plan. That's very common. People have plans like, all right, first I'm going to go to school, then I'm going to blah, blah, blah. When it comes to romance, people have a lot of plans. Or like, I'm going to go on Match.com, I'm going to go on 5 dates, I'm going to find the guy who's the most blanket, or I'm going to find the girl. So plans are like super widespread in my experience. But yet people aren't winning. So once again, you can see it's not working. So the only thing that works is strategy. So this book is about how to create strategy. And so he defines strategy as basically making the right choice. Strategy is an integrated set of choices that uniquely position, and he's talking about a business, the firm and its industry so as to create sustainable advantage and superior relative value to the competition. Let's break that down for a second. There's a lot of words. But each of them are important and hand chosen. So here's what strategy is. Like I said, it starts with choices, but not just any choices. And I was on my way walking up here. It's funny, I was just talking about this to, I think, Jonas, who works here. And I said, man, you got a plan, but so he was making a plan to do some marketing campaign, but he forgot to talk to Renee, who's also working on something similar. So your plan's your choices have to be integrated in with the big picture of what's going on. You can't just go, great classic example if you want to know practical for this. The most practical example, if you're having a hard time understanding this abstract way of thinking about this. So Mark is here. Mark's a celebrity personal trainer and athlete and all this. If you go to a gym, go to any gym, but don't work out. Just sit in the corner of the gym and watch newbie people come in the gym. All right, this is what they do. My dad was a pro bodybuilder. He used to tell me that he used to own a gym, and he also worked out this, I forget, it's a big gym in Long Beach when I was a little kid. So I didn't see my dad much, but one time I remember going to the gym with my dad. And he told me, he's like, you know, people come in this gym all the time, but they never make any progress. It's like you see people on the treadmill, there's always chubby people. There is a guy, I've talked about this, who lives on my street. I moved there in 2009 to that house. Okay, so I've been there a long time. He jogs around my street. If I'm home, I'll see him 2 to 3 times a week, okay? He's always sweating. He's always booking it, and I live in the hills, and he's weighed the exact, I don't know what this guy does, but it's insane. He's never lost a pound. He's got a belly. I think he jogs and then goes and drinks a whole bunch of, whatever he does, it's 1 step forward and 1 step backwards. So that's what my dad was talking about. By the way, that's called the Red Queen effect. That's from Cinderella, where you're always running but never going anywhere. So you go into a gym, you watch people. They don't have any strategy. So they'll just be like, oh, a treadmill. I heard about a treadmill. I'm gonna go run on a treadmill. Then they like get off of it. If you YouTube, have you ever seen that guy who's doing the exercise? He's in the machine wrong, and then it collapses on him. Have you seen that? There's a little just Google on YouTube, guy in gym gets stuck in machine, because he basically he walked by a machine, didn't know what it was, so it's not integrated, it's not part of a plan. He wasn't like today's leg day. He was just like, oh, what is this? And it was a rowing machine, I think, but with bands or something, and he put his legs in it, and he was doing like crunches, and the thing just collapsed. It just, like his head touches his feet. It's so funny. And you see everybody from the gym run to save this guy. But that's what most people's life is. They're like, oh, I'm gonna do this. Oh, I'm bouncing from here to here or here. It's gotta be integrated. That means choice 1 is related to choice 2. So good people who work out, they go to the gym and it's part of a strategy. So the strategy, for example, is like, look, I'm on a 3 a week workout, meaning you hit every body part 3 times a week, okay? And they have a strategy. I put these body parts together. So maybe they work out, you know, shoulders and chest on the same day, or blah, blah, you pick whatever it is, okay? They separate lower back from upper back, different days. That's all part of a strategy. That means before you go in the gym, you already mapped it out. Strategies, he doesn't add this, but strategies are usually, good strategies are peer reviewed. So meaning a lot of people's plans, people have plans, like I was saying, Jonas, he had this plan with just in his own mind. He hadn't run it by anybody. The second I heard his plan, I was like, it's a bad plan. It's not part of a strategy. Because you know, he was designing some thumbnails for the YouTube videos, but we already have guys doing that in another part of the office. So you gotta communicate. And when you peer review it, so before you go work out in the gym, you gotta talk to some people who are already in better shape than you and be like, does it make sense to work out my shoulders and chest? You gotta read some books on it. Then you start making a war plan. And these guys like Michael Milken, for example, remember, take Steve Wynn, who started the Bellagio Hotel, the Golden Nugget, and now owns Encore, and what's the big one he owns? The Wynn, thank you. The Wynn, Steve Wynn owns it. Steve Wynn was a little guy. He had a $6 million company. And then one guy came in above him named Michael Milken and gave him $125 million. They say Steve Wynn was a made man. A lot of people say Steve Wynn was in the mafia. He wasn't in the mafia. He was in the Michael Milken money mafia. But Michael Milken had a plan. It was a strategy laid out over years, and then he executed on it. And everything made sense, exactly how he raised capital. He did what's called junk bonds, high yield bonds. He knew how to do complicated things. He would take treasuries, and there's something called strips, where you strip out the semi-annual payment and you trade them separately. All these complicated things that he created in Wall Street they were all integrated. He wasn't just walking it. He wasn't just going, I need some money for my company. Let me just raise $1 million. Who wants to give me $1 million? The answer is nobody. Nobody's just going to do it like that. So the next part of the plan, a strategy, so it's integrated choice. I added this word, peer review. He didn't have this in the book, but I think that's important. It positions you, uniquely positioned. So this, again, is somewhat Peter Drucker-esque. So this is, you got to know yourself. And people think they have too many choices in life. People think they could be good at too many things. You can't. I cannot uniquely position myself at 20 things. I can't be somebody who targets 80-year-old women and simultaneously I also target, 25-year-old guys who like Lamborghinis. You just can't do it. Whatever 80-year-old women like, it's not going to be Lamborghinis and Ferraris. It might be walkers. Or what are those little things you see at Walmart, those little carts that fat people have? Little scooters where you shop, shopping scooters. So you got to uniquely position your strategy. And that one's hard. I think one of the things that I see the most in the world is now people are not uniquely positioning themselves. They're just positioning themselves because they like something. You know, the reason the Kardashians work, it's very interesting. Kris Kardashian, the mother, is a very smart woman, okay? She made $70 million. She was born basically with nothing. She rose up socially and built this empire that's really the most known empire in the world. This is what people don't realize about the Kardashians. There's never been 7 billion people on the planet. So Augustus Caesar, who built a big empire thousands of years ago, he wasn't known by 7 billion people, right? Einstein wasn't known by 7 billion people, but Kim Kardashian is, I don't know if she's known by all 7 billion, but she's probably known by 4 billion people. How did her mother do that? Kris Kardashian is a strategist, and she also knows how to uniquely position her family, because she couldn't compete with Warren Buffett. If she positioned herself as this genius financial investor, Warren Buffett is uniquely positioned to that, and he's going to dominate her in that area. She would be unknown. But how many people do you know that how many kids are in the Kardashian family?
Kardashian's immediate family?
Yeah, like Kim's
3 girls.
3 girls. So the 3 girls, they're unique looking. Kim Kardashian is pretty and like exotic, and Khloe and they got what's the,
Jenners.
yeah,
Kendall and Kylie.
but there's the guy too.
Oh, Rob.
There's another one.
Brody?
Brody Jenner. Yeah, Brody. So it's this like amalgamation of perfectly, if you wanted to build something that people would watch in terms of TV voyeurism, so humans are attracted to pretty people, you know. It's a pretty family, okay? There's not that many families that, I don't particularly find them attractive, but if you put them in a laboratory and put a mask on their face and looked at the proportions, Kim Kardashian, if you like that look, is good looking. The daughter, one of her younger sisters is super pretty too. The Brody Jenner, he's like kind of like a male model guy, right? He was on The Hills and all this stuff. So they're uniquely positioned that it will be hard to compete with them. If you don't believe me, look at your family pictures. Would you, not to knock anybody, is your family, could you uniquely compete with the Kardashians? Are you in Hollywood? She was married to an Olympic star. He was married to Shapiro. Shapiro is one of the most powerful lawyers. He did the OJ trial. He owns LegalZoom and stuff like that. So she built this strategy that, what's the end result? For her, it's winning, And so it's got to be uniquely positioned. And then the advantage of that is you get it's got to be sustainable. This is another thing. A lot of times people do stuff. That's the thing about going back to the gym analogy. You see people in the gym and they're doing workouts. And this is the one thing I've seen a lot of personal trainers do wrong. They get somebody who's new and they like work them out hard. And I'm like, man, you're just bombarding that person's brain with pain. Because if you haven't worked out and you're a personal trainer and you stick someone in an intense workout, their brain, no matter what the neocortex logical part says this is good, their brainstem is screaming, that was the worst thing I've done in a long time. So what happens is there's no stickability slash sustainability. That comes back to that Bruce Lee thing, not fearing the man who does 1,000 kicks, but fearing the man who does 1 kick a day for 1,000 days. So when you make your strategy, like now I'm focused everything on sustainable. Like how can I sustainably hit my objectives? Don't make a strategy that's not sustainable. And then the last one, you have to know, and this last one I think is what people forget the most. You have to realize that there's other people trying to do the same thing. And I see that people move here to Hollywood and they're making the choice to be in the music industry. They've talked to their buddies and friends. They're a pretty good singer in their small town in Missouri. They've got an integrated plan. They're uniquely positioning themselves. Maybe they're like, I'm going to be a R&B singer or whatever. They even have a way to sustainably, they're like into it. Every day they can wake up and do music, but they forgot the last one, which is how do you rank compared to all the other people who move to Hollywood and want to sing? And there's a lot of them. And so you can get all these right, but if you can't get this last one, then you'll be unknown, right? You'll pull off a strategy and you can't win that way. So, Maya was talking about the 5 areas. You know, you've got to have a winning aspiration, where to play, how to win, core capabilities, and management system. But let me fast forward to a part that I like here. So there's different kinds of analysis that you can do in your life and your business, okay? Let me find the one here. You've probably heard of SWOT before. A lot of people have heard of that. SWOT, S-W-O-T. This is an analysis where you look at what you're doing and see if it's sustainable. But there's a great one in here. Okay, so I want to introduce you to something. As you're making your strategy for your business, your entrepreneurial venture, I want you to remember these letters. This is called a VRIN analysis. This is very advanced business stuff, by the way. You won't learn this many places. There's SWOT analysis is something you'll learn kind of in beginning business school, but a VRIN is more complex. There's a lot of complicated ones. There's you know, there's one called the McKinsey 9-box matrix. There's some bizarre ones. This one, I like the VRIN model. So let's just do a simple VRIN. This isn't a class. So the V stands for valuable. So take your current business, your current product that you're offering, just rank it 1 to 10 here. Okay? Let's do this all together. I want everybody to do this. I want you to post it in the video below. Everybody do it here. Your strategy now, what you're doing, okay? How valuable does the world see it? So, for example, remember, it's got to be how do your customers see it? So, let's say you're a barista at Starbucks, okay? How valuable is that service? I would say it's somewhat valuable. You know, on a 1 to 10, it's from some people are addicted to coffee. It's a higher number, but I'd say people are, you know, 6, let's say, or 5. I would say to me it's like a 2 because I don't like coffee. But for the average coffee goer, the barista, his value or her value in the chain, actually it's a little bit lower. Let's say 4. It's somewhat valuable because when you go to Starbucks, you wouldn't want to have to make your own coffee. So you're like, okay. So let's just say a barista is okay. R stands for rare. So 1 to 10, a barista is a 1. It is not rare. There's a lot of baristas in the world. Okay? So make sure you're writing down what you are. Okay? All right. Okay? Anybody know what this word is? Inimitable?
Easily imitated.
Right. How easy can you be copied? Okay? How hard is it to, if I saw what you did, could I reverse engineer and figure out how to do it? So a barista on a 1 to 10, I'm definitely going, you can learn that job in like 3 days probably, right? Maybe a week. So I'm going to give that a 2. Okay? Well, so what's yours? Is everybody writing this down? And then, this is a key one, non-substitutable. One to 10. So if baristas did not, you wake up in a world, it's like a matrix world, it's like someone took a pill, and you go to Starbucks, and the doors close because there's no baristas there. What would you do if you wanted coffee? And I'm going to say the answer is you can substitute. You could go to Ralph's, buy your own coffee, or you could go to another. In this case, I'm saying if every coffee place was closed, you could make your own coffee. So in terms of non-substitute, I'd say there's a 5. So what's the average of these numbers? We'll give it a score here. Anybody know what that averages to? 12 divided by 4, isn't that right? Okay? So you can pretty much predict if the strategy for a person is to be a barista, you can pretty much predict the amount of money it's going to be in their bank account, their income, their potential here. It's a 3. You ain't going anywhere fast with this. Now, maybe if you became Schultz and owned Starbucks. So with your business, this is a scary thing to do. So let's try the business that I'm in, because you guys know that, and then we'll do your business. Okay, valuable. So this is a tricky one, because it's not how valuable I think it is. It's how valuable people who are my customers think it is. So, and I would say the people who aren't yet customers, because your customers are buying from you because they think it's valuable. So how many people, so I talk about knowledge and books and all this stuff, being smarter. I would say it's not as high a number as I want it to be. We're working on brand awareness and changing that in the world. But I would say, but people do know there's a value. People will go to Harvard and spend 200 grand. It's not like a 1. I would say it's like currently like, I would say it's a 7 or a 6. So let's just say pick 7. How rare is it? So this is an interesting question. The way that I'm doing this is relatively rare, I would say, in the sense that there are some people that do online educational stuff, but it's relatively rare. There's universities, but I'm not a university. This business isn't a university. So I'm going to say, in terms of rare, you know, I'd say it's a 7 or 8. Let's just go with 8. Now, this one, I have a high number because there's nobody else that's exactly like me. So people like what I'm doing. So this one, in terms of to replicate me, would be almost impossible because, you know, there's only one person with my set of DNA. Businesses built around humans have one advantage. It's usually around this, you know. If you like, that's why you see people who like Steve Jobs and like his little thing, they become loyal followers because there's, and Bill Gates, no matter how much he tried, he cannot become Steve Jobs. You know, it wasn't possible. So business is built around actors. How easy is it to be the next Brad Pitt or Ryan Gosling? It's pretty hard, okay? So if you're in a commodity business though, if you're selling steel, that's anybody else who knows how to get in the steel business. Now, substitutes. This is a tricky number here. So substitutes, if I wasn't alive and this business disappeared from the planet, people have substitutes. They would go to college, they can read books. So substitute, I would give a lower number. Let's just go with a 6. So if I add these together, okay, if I'm doing a Vrin analysis of the strategy and potential for what I'm doing, I'm going to give it a 15, 25, 31, okay, divided by 4 is roughly 7 point. Let's say, just say 7. We'll just round it and keep it 7. Okay? So you can see there's a good chance that I'm going to make more money than a barista. And there's also, this brings up interesting things. How can you make, what you want is a 10, right? So if you look here, how do I got to make a perception that you can't substitute what I'm doing. If I can get this is my lowest number. If I can get this number up to an 8, and the perception by the public is there's no substitute, you know, not to go back to Dan Bilzerian, but he is a great example. He's not actually making money on his Instagram, but if you ever go to his Instagram, it's just like him partying with like strippers and models on yachts and crazy stuff, right? So valuable. His audience, by the way, as you can expect, is not 80-year-old women. It's 14 to 25-year-old guys. Actually, all age men, but young guys, okay? How valuable do guys perceive like, oh, this sexy lifestyle? Guys perceive it as like a 10. How rare is a Dan Bilzerian? Well, Dan Bilzerian is known as like the next Hugh Hefner. So it's a 10. There's not many of them. Inimitable. Well, Dan Bilzerian inherited money from his dad, plus became a poker player, made money on his own. He has, you know, Lamborghinis and Aventadors and all this. How easy is that to recreate? Not at all, 10. And non-substitutable, people could look at Hugh Hefner's 90, so maybe you could watch Hugh Hefner if you're old school, but it's pretty hard. Let's look at 9. So that's a 39 divided by 4. It's roughly almost a 10, okay? So guess what? His Instagram grows like 1 million a month. Last time I looked, it was like 8 million. Now it's like 10 million or something. So his strategy, now you might not consider that winning for you. Like for me, being Dan Bilzerian wouldn't feel like winning. That dude likes to party, you know? And I've been around that. I've been in that business. It can get old fast, at least for me, okay? So it's not winning for me. So I'm not gonna build a strategy around trying to be Dan Bilzerian. But I'm also not gonna refute that this guy has a strategy that if his goal is to live a nuts lifestyle, he's pulling it off as good as anyone on the planet. His strategy, it's all integrated, it works together. It's passes a VRIN model at the highest level. So what I have to do, if I'm at a 7, I gotta up my numbers. So you do this through marketing and innovation, going back to it. So if I can change, and that's what I'm doing, and I'm already doing it. Like if I change the perception people have of books, which I've already kind of done in the world, but I hope to do it 100 times more, where all of a sudden books and reading and knowledge becomes sexy and it becomes the thing that people want to be, then all of a sudden the value will go through the roof. If the way I'm projecting that to people, the only lesson from Dan Bilzerian for me is he created it. He does very well right here, I think the most. See, my perception of his value to the world, if Dan Bilzerian left the planet right now, the world it'd be no difference in the world. There's no better or worse. It would just be like a little blip was off. So to me, the value is low. To me, there's a lot of dudes who party like that. They just don't have an Instagram. Not always exactly. So the rarity is low. But man, on this one, he's dominant. It's hard to recreate. It's hard to even get 10 million Instagram followers. And it's definitely hard. There's no one like him. That's a cool thing that he did. Like Dan Bilzerian is Dan Bilzerian. He threw a girl off balcony and she missed the pool and broke her leg and got like that. He's nuts. He kicked some girl in the chest in Miami, and he's a big dude too. And he kicked her with a combat boot. Right off she sued him. I think he broke her chest he said she kept coming on stage and thought I was gonna attack her. But I'm like, Dan, dude, you're a big dude, man. You kick a girl in the chest, kick anybody in the chest with a boot. So not many people are going to try to do that life. So he's built it where there's only one Dan Bilzerian on this planet. And so he really dominates here. So in your business, and in your plan, you have to think through these. So I want some of you on the call, put what your score is, break it down with these 4. So I'm gonna stop talking. Here, I'm gonna set the timer for 2 minutes. Everybody here do the same thing. If you don't yet have a business, and let's say you work for somebody, okay, some of you in the audience work for me, for the position you're in, you gotta give yourself this analysis, okay, a VRIN analysis. So I'm gonna set the timer here for 2 minutes. All right, we're back. Somebody's just put the number 4, okay? Try to put it where you put each of your letters in, V-R-I-N. So somebody said they're V, they're a 4, R, they're a 5, I, they're a 4, N, they're a 5. So they're averaging 4.5. So I'm gonna put a 6.25. Somebody said the martial arts school I'm starting is a rare style in the city. Our students are excited. So 7, 8, 6, 6. So added together, that's 27 divided by 4. So that's roughly about a 7. Now, here's the good number. Someone put V8 453, so total average of a 5. How do you convert this number to ROI? So here's the deal. This will translate into money, very direct line. So Dan Bilzerian could turn his Instagram into a $3 to $5 million a month business overnight. That's about what you'd have at his, but he already has money. It's a long story about his money, but he doesn't really need the money. But he could be making, I would say, 20 to 50 million bucks a year. If you make $50 million in a year, just so you know, and it would pretty much be net because he has no marketing costs. There's only 155 people in America who make $50 million a year. So he would, when you're a 10, you'll be in the top, not just the top 1%. To be in the top, so 99.9%, you only have to be above that, you only have to make 400 grand a year. So how does this pay off? Well, a barista at Starbucks, a 3 is gonna probably make, it's exponential by the way, so the difference between a 3 and a 10, it's not just a straight line magnitude, it's infinitely more. So a 3, you're probably gonna make about minimum wage. You know, 1 is like you're unemployable. 2 is like you're still kind of maybe 2 is a McDonald's worker. 3, I think people at Starbucks make a tad bit more, right? They get a little bit of benefits, but nobody's living a good life financially by being a barista at Starbucks. If you can get to a 7, you know, if you're marking yourself as a 7, you have to be making, I would say that's for sure a 7-figure business, okay? Maybe an 8-figure business. So when you get into the 8, 9s, and 10s, honestly, because some of you, it's hard to know this, so I'm not picking on you. If you're really an 8 or a 9, you'll be making $50 to $100 million a year. And a 10 would be like Warren Buffett. Valuable capital, a man who possesses $20 billion in cash and a $300 billion company. You know how valuable people will kill for $1,000. He has in his cash bank account $20,000 million. That's a 10. Rare, well, he has a $300 million company. He's the majority owner. There's only maybe 1 or 2 or other people in the world that have that. So that's definition of rare. Inimitable, you cannot copy Warren Buffett. I mean, he started at 7. The man's a genius. And non-substitutable, you know, who's like him? There's no investor ever been like him. Even Carl Icahn, who's a great investor, only made $20 billion. Warren Buffett made $70 billion. There's never been in it. George Soros made $1 billion. There's no substitute for Warren Buffett. So be careful with these numbers. 7, you're probably making 10 to 100 million bucks a year. Okay. 8, 50 or 100 plus. 9, you're a billionaire almost, and a 10, you're on the Forbes list. That's what a 10 is. Okay. So I'm not trying to embarrass anybody here, but most of you did it correctly. Most of you are giving yourself a little over a 5. So mathematically, a 5 would be around the average income of a country. So 5 is average between 1 and 10. So the average income in the United States and most of the Western world equivalent is $52,000 a year. And if you have a husband and wife, if you're married or a couple, you'd be about $80,000 a year. So if you're a 5, you're probably household income around 80 grand, individual income around 50. So that's a good way to know. Now, if you're just starting something new and it doesn't have revenue, that's fine. But so someone's here, entry-level financial analyst at an investment bank, you put yourself as a 5.25. And that sounds about right, probably. Now, if you rise up in the business, it's probably because you're rising up in these 4. Somebody said summer job, they're a 3. So my average is about a 3. Somebody here put my average as an 8. So whenever you get too high of a number, okay, because I sometimes when I've done this, I get too high of a number. Remember this, it's valuable because to me, what I'm doing, if I was a customer and could be 18 years old again, I consider it a 10, but the world doesn't yet consider knowledge a 10, okay? I consider myself, so you might say, hey Ty, I'm a rare person, but let's say one of you you're doing a martial arts studio, okay? Even if you're doing a different style of martial arts studio, the average person in the world doesn't know that. If they see a studio, they see it as something they can substitute and that it's not that rare. So be careful of giving yourself a 10. That's where you end up with too high of a number, okay? For me, I'm a 4, 6, 5, pension fund investor, value. Once I've developed my unique content, my inimitable value should go up. Okay, so most of you, if you look here, are 4 to 6s, which I think is basically probably right. Now, how about people here? What did you guys, anybody want to volunteer?
I can volunteer.
Yes.
I did 6,
Okay.
and I looked at it from my company's perspective, not from my personal perspective.
Okay. So your company, what's your company again?
Movie Heroes.
Movie Heroes.
Yeah, we have a membership model for movie theaters.
Right. So he's got a movie theater system. You basically pay a monthly fee,
Right.
and you get all the access you want to movies, theaters in LA. You can watch as many movies as you
Yeah,
want.
it's in Northern California right now.
Northern California. So
locations, yeah.
what did you give yourself for valuable?
I gave myself an 8 for that.
Okay. Now, so let's think of it this way. Movies, going to movies. If you don't mind, we'll be brutally honest, and I don't know what I'm going to come up with, but so you got to, one of the things in this book, we talk about developing strategy. I'm not going to go through the whole book. This is a book you should read over and over for the next 10 years. You got to understand self-value in the industry and competitive chain. So what is the trend right now in terms of people going to movies? Value's been dropping since, I think, 1928. Movie attendance in America has dropped since the 20s or 30s every year. And the reason is, in the 20s or 30s, did you have a TV? Did you have an iPhone? So guess what happened? A movie theater was not substitutable. It was hard to build a movie theater. Now you can get a flat screen TV. It was rare. And people, so I think the movie theater, I would give this a low one. Just how I would. I would say, I do think movie theater is still somewhat important. I'd give it above a 5. But let's just try my numbers versus yours, and let's see. So 6, I would say. Now, rare, how many other people are offering a once a month payment to access?
It's pretty rare. We're the first theater in the nation.
Okay, so you're first, so I'm going to say 10. Let's put it at a 10 there. Inimitable, okay? In terms of how easy is it for me to start out and compete with you by just launching a monthly subscription to a theater?
It's pretty hard.
Pretty hard.
Yeah, it took us 14 months to get contracts with the studios.
Yeah, I'm going to give that like an 8 or a 9. Let's put a 9. Okay, 9. But let me show you we're going to get crushed on this average.
That's where I crushed myself too on that.
So substitutable. What's the substitutes now for going to a movie theater? Well,
One, you don't even need, you could just go buy the ticket.
yeah, you could just literally just buy the ticket when you want to. You can go to Netflix, on demand, Hulu, Redbox, TV, YouTube. Is Blockbuster still in business? I think Blockbuster is gone. You got music as a substitute. Some people are just like smoke weed and listen to music instead of a lot of. So one thing, that's interesting, I'll show you. So let's give this, I'm going to give this a 3 or a 2. What is that average? Well, I gave it a 6, 3, so 9, 19, and I gave this, what, an 8 or something?
You did 9.
9, so that's 28 divided by 4, 7. What'd you give it?
I got a 6.
Okay. So you're, and I think that,
Our revenue's kind of in line with the numbers you were saying before for that.
gotcha. And I think the valuable, what did we put here?
You said 6.
Yeah, what did you put?
I put 8.
I would almost put lower. I almost feel like in the value chain of going, well, how valuable, let's just say here, minus the movie guys that work for me, how valuable are movies to your life? Movies specifically.
Classics. Depends on how long
Do you ever go a week without them?
Oh, yeah. I mean, but.
Who here goes a week without going to a movie? Raise your hand. The owner of it. Okay. Who here has ever gone 2 years without going to a movie? I mean, 2 weeks without going to a movie. Okay. When I lived and started stuff with Joel Salatin and the Amish, I did not see a movie, I would say, from 16 to 26. No, probably till about almost, I went 14 years without seeing a movie. I know because I met the guy who's a scientist, Herman. It's funny, the scientist is the guy who got me into movies. And I remember, I was like, what should we do? And he's like, let's go to a movie. And I remember my brain going, what? It wasn't even in the it took him, I would say I knew him for 1 to 2 years before I ever went to a movie with him. I just couldn't fathom that people went to movies. I was like, what? Let me redo this. I'm going to say it's like 4, 10, 9, it's 23, and 2, 25. So then I'm going to get more like the number you're at. So it's like 6 to 7. Now, let me show you a little cool trick here on how you can make more money. Simple. You got your business, you're selling a Netflix model for movie theaters. Who finds movies at the theater valuable? Is there a set of people that find it?
Location? If we're in Hollywood, yeah.
If you're in Hollywood, okay.
I've heard statistically young males watch the most.
Young males, okay.
Anyone who goes to a movie theater? And
What about older? I'm just going demographics. Or do old people like cheap? Because it's cheap. It's less. It's $20 for all the movies you want to go. Because old people a lot of times do that, like senior citizen Wednesdays, where they're like $2 or something.
What about kids?
Who?
Kids.
Kids, parents maybe. So what you would want to do is, remember how I said you got to find where you want to compete at? You could find a place, because I feel like older people, for example, don't substitute quite as much with YouTube, Hulu. They might substitute. My grandma is 97 and she does do Netflix, but she doesn't do Netflix streaming. She still has her, we were driving around, she's like, you got to stop at a mailbox. I'm like, why? She's like, I got my little Netflix thing that I got to drop in. So there is some competition there. But I bet you, I don't think you have to worry about these right now. It's going to be perceived as rare and hard to replicate by everybody in the United States right now. Tesla cars, electric cars, very rare, very hard to build. There's a BMW that now come out that I'm looking at buying. So, but there's a substitute for electric cars. It's called cars. You get a regular car, right? So that's why Tesla probably won't get ultimate. Now it has value because saving money on gas, people perceive some value there. But for you, which I think you would do, is you need to find the people that it's valuable to that don't substitute as much. And I guarantee you there's some group of people there. Yep.
If you'd like more information about this business model, about their geographical location that makes them more valuable?
Yeah.
They're only in remote areas where there's not any competitive
Okay.
movie theaters and where there's less entertainment options for the population.
Cool. So they've
That raises the value.
Yeah, so they've positioned themselves in the strategy in where there's less people around. And they're more rural, there's less entertainment. So maybe in Hollywood it would be a harder place to do this because there's a movie theater on every corner. Cool. Okay, anybody else? One more person? Anybody else want to do what they gave theirs? Okay.
I work in support.
So you work in support here at the company? Okay.
I gave the value of it a 6.
Okay, 6, yep.
And then for rare, I put 2.
Right, because it's one of the more,
Yeah, it's like-
we have the most of people working in that. Okay, 2,
Inimitable, I put 1.
okay.
Yeah.
Because it's easy for people to learn. Okay, so we got 9.
And then non-substitutable, I put another 1.
Although I would say, yeah, I guess for you being
Yeah,
a substitute, we can, yeah. So that adds up to a 10 divided by 4 is 2.5. So yeah, that's one of the entry level jobs that we have. Okay, So you see how this goes. Let's see, does anybody want to actually talk about their business model that's on here, that's watching? And let's talk about now, I want to kind of go to the next step is I was just doing it, how you can raise this number. For me, it's a lot of brand awareness stuff to change. I want to change this one. See, substitutes is the hardest for me to change in the education business. I cannot shut down Harvard, Yale, USC, DeVry College. What's the place you learn languages? Rosetta Stone. I'm not going to compete. I'm not going to remove those substitutes. These two, it's very hard to do what I'm doing. I can't think of anybody in America doing it. So this one, I'm like a 10. These two I got unlocked, but these two are killing me. So I'm starting with the one that's easiest. Valuable, how do I do that? You do branding campaigns. So for us, it's like, tomorrow I'm going to be in a movie with Andy Samberg. Going to shoot that, maybe get some shots there. Even with celebrity stuff, even with celebrities talking about their books, stuff like that, all of a sudden people go putting up branding with Lamborghinis and cars in the same thing, going, you know how I got this Lamborghini? From knowledge, from books and things like that. Then all of a sudden people go, ooh, like it is valuable to have knowledge. So I think I can push this up to an 8 or a 9. And if I can do that without touching any of these, then I'll go 9, 8 is 17, 27, 33 divided by 4 is what? 8. So you push to 8, now you got a $100 million business, which is, all the businesses that I focus on are businesses that I think minimum can be a $100 million business. So remember, going from a 7 to an 8, or for you, going from a 6 to a 7 is not just like making 10% more money. It's like making an extra 5 million or 10 million. Well, it's exponential. You know, like on an IQ test. Somebody who has a 150, if you have a 140, somebody who has a 150, it's not the same as someone who has a 110, someone has a 120. If you ever meet somebody in the 150s of IQ, a lot of people who will tell you they have a 150 IQ because they took an online test. I'm talking about I have a relative that has an IQ at that level. He speaks 14 languages. That's what happens when you get in the 150s, okay? He graduated university at 16 and is the #1 PhD in the world in his field. So 140 is, if you meet a 140, like your medical doctor is probably like a 140. They're smart. But medical doctors are not the smartest people at school. So when you meet an astrophysicist, they're probably like mid 140s. When you meet in the 150s, you start getting like Albert, because people say there's these people with, I know a guy who tells me he has a 180 IQ. Albert Einstein probably had a 160. So that's the exponential growth. Even moving these notch one thing can be the difference between you making 100,000 and you making $1 million income, okay? Somebody said, I haven't gone to see a movie in 7 months. I've been to the movies once in my life. Okay. You should make it so we can FaceTime, Skype with you when asking questions visual. Yes, I want to add that. We'll work on that at some point. Google Hangouts kind of has that, but only like 15 people can be in the picture, in the communication, so it's not that good. The trick with movies is being able to have add-ons while watching the movie. Nice, healthy snacks. It's very interesting, these numbers. Most of you are giving yourself 4 to 6. Isn't the VRIN a projection of what a business will potentially be, not what it is now? Yes. So somebody put, you know, can you project out what your revenue? But just be careful with that, because if you are starting from scratch, here's what most people do when they come to an investor. Over and over they do this. This is a great book, by the way. I talked about this. I got a little YouTube video, How to Write a Great Business Plan, by this famous Columbia professor, William Solomon, not Columbia, Harvard professor. And he says, when most people tell you their business plan, they're going to show you, look, Ty, it's already valuable, it's like a 9, it's rare, and they're gonna show this is a $1 billion company, so I want you to invest 10 million bucks and I'll give you, 5% of the company or something like that. Be careful with projecting what you haven't done. It's not that easy. And it's probably the most common flaw that I see when people come to me with their investment. Everybody has a $1 billion idea, man. Everybody's like, I got an 8. It's an 8. It's an 8. And what I would do if I was you and I was starting out, so let's say you don't yet have the thing. You're like September Ty, I'm launching this thing. I would not do the VRIN. I mean, you can do it it's not hard to do. I wouldn't do it on the future product. I would do it on you as a human. Because good investors, William Solomon says in this book, this is a great book, by the way. It's only 64 mini-me pages. So this thing's the equivalent of 10 pages. And I'll read you what he says about what good investors are looking for in a business. He says, and you've probably heard something like this. He said, when I receive a business plan, I always read the resume section first. Not because the people part of the venture is the most important, but because without the right team, none of the other parts really matters. I read the resumes of the ventures team with a list of questions in mind. All these questions get at the same 3 issues about the ventures team members. What do they know? Who do they know? And how well are they known? So when you're doing a VRIN, let's say you've got an idea. You're like, Ty, a guy told me a joke. I don't remember the joke, so I'm going to butcher it. It was like, somebody told me how you can make 3 steps to making $1 billion, 3 steps to becoming a billionaire by curing cancer. It was like, step 1, I'm going to ruin this joke. It wasn't that funny of a joke to start with, so I'm going to make it even worse. It was like, step 1, make a business, step 1, create a company, step 2, cure cancer, step 3, market it. The joke is step 2 is almost impossible to do, right? So a lot of times people have a business plan, they're like, see Ty, coffee. Everybody loves coffee. The average person, there's billions of dollars of coffee. So what I'm going to do is make a company that's better than Starbucks, and then I'll get all the money from Starbucks. I'm like, that's the hard part. You can't make that you can't say you have a $1 billion idea. I don't even think there are I doubt there are $1 billion ideas that are worth anything. $1 billion strategies. There are $1 billion freaking strategies. There's not, I'm going to start debunking. I don't think I had a $1 billion idea. I told everybody this. I was 11. I read Lord of the Rings. I was like, someone should make this into a movie. I have no money from that. I'm a zeroinaire in my ventures on Lord of the Rings. Is that a word? Zeroinaire?
It is now.
In fact, I'm in the negative because every time I go see Lord of the Rings, I pay money. So I'm probably $60 down. And I had to buy the books. I'm a negative, investor in that franchise. So who cares? So if you are saying, Ty, I'm doing the VRIN on my cancer cure. Of course, if you could cure cancer, if you can cure cancer, that is a 10. Valuable. 10. People who have cancer and don't have cancer, they would give you, everyone in the world right now, if they had to ante up $100 in America and they knew that everybody they knew with cancer would be cured, and if they ever got cancer, they'd be cured, every American would come up with $100. That's how valuable it is. If they had the money. Rare, nobody's done it yet. Inimitable, nobody's done it yet. Non-substitutable, cure for cancer, there's no substitute. So when someone walks in the door and goes, see Ty, I got a VRIN that's a 10, I'm like, that's a worthless VRIN. When you're starting a business, show me your VRIN. So he says a simple way to do a VRIN, he has a different one for a person, but it's the same idea. What do you know? Who do you know? Your connections. And who knows you? That's a big one. Because you know what? I know Warren Buffett, but there's a small problem. He doesn't know me. So who cares who you know if they don't know you back? So that's my long answer to that. Be careful of doing VRINs and projecting money. It becomes almost the most worthless thing you'll ever do in your life. Although it doesn't hurt to do it. Just don't spend a ton of time on it. Somebody said cavity prevention in kids. Parents want cavity-free kids, but few kids want to brush. So he gave a 5. Lots of dentists, lots of cavities in kids. So you gave yourself a 5. If you could prevent cavities, is that valuable? You gave it a 5. I'm going to tell you this. Prevention is a tough business. People don't value prevention. If you can fix their tooth once they see problems, it becomes higher. So you might even want to go value of cavity prevention, 5 at the max. Rare, lots of dentists, but also lots of cavities. So you gave it a 5. 6, lots of inimitable, lots of YouTube cartoon songs. Oh, so you're going to do a kids thing, teaching how to brush teeth. Lots of YouTube cartoon songs to help kids brush, but no live dentist coaching kids. So you're saying it's a 9 to do what, remember, it's not if anybody's doing it. It's once you start doing it, how easy it is to copycat you. Okay? So one of the reasons that, I read a book a day. Even if people see that, not many people are going to do that. So it's hard to copy me even once you know. This is once they know what you're doing, how easy it is for them to do it. So I wouldn't give it a 9 for that. And then substitutable. So it's not could others do it. Don't get confused. Substitutable mean are there other products that people can do instead. So it's for your movie theater thing, substitutes are not other movie theaters as much as other things like watching on Hulu on their phone. Okay? Cool. Somebody gave petrochemical transportation business. Valuable. Okay. Somewhat high. Rare, 5. Inimitable, you might want to give that, yeah, so let's say 3. Non-substitutable, okay, 9. So what does that come out for yours? 18 plus 8. 27 divided by 4. So a 7, right? Okay. All right, so I want to do 2 things. I'll do one quick thing. I want to answer some questions here now that you have about business in general. Questions, then I'm going to sign the next book also. But I want to give you some time because sometimes we run out of time on these, so I want to make sure there's time. So you can now ask. I'm going to talk for 5 minutes on a couple other things I liked in this book. But the main thing is take this next 5 minutes to write any questions you have, okay? So if you don't have any questions, you can listen in. If you have questions, write out some good questions. If you guys have any questions, write some out. Then I'll answer some questions and assign the next book here. All right, there's a one little thing in this book not many people will catch. And so he was talking about on page here, if you have the hardback, he was talking about Oil of Olay. So Oil of Olay is a brand. Everybody here know that brand? It's like, it used to be low-cost moisturizers and stuff sold at like drugstores. It wasn't a high-value product. So their average product was around, I don't know, $4 to $8. And they realized that skincare has potential for huge margins. If you build a brand, you can sell stuff for $50 and it costs you $2 to make it. So it's a high margin product and it creates loyal customers. Once somebody starts using skincare and they feel like they see results, they'll use it for 20 years, okay? You don't have to keep marketing to them. So Oil of Olay, they said, all right, we got to try to make more money in that area. So what they did a couple, you should read there's a case study on what they did and they grew the value, I think $1 billion very quickly. And I'm gonna go over a few other things. One of the things they did, and if you are new to the program, make sure you go back into the vault on the talk I did on the book Smart Pricing and rewatch that. And what it says, they tested price points. So you had drugstores. Oh man, I hate these pens. Drugstores. Okay, it's getting worse here. Be down to my last marker.
You want to write in red?
Oh, okay, sweet. Yeah, we need some colors like this. So drugstore, and then you had like the high-end department stores, like what's a high-end department store? Blooming, Neiman Marcus or something, okay? So over here, skincare was selling for $50 a bottle, And their oil of Olay here, let's just say, is like $6 or something. So they pioneered a new industry they created. It has a weird word. It's called like mass luxury. I forget. It's a weird hybrid of these two words. So what they wanted to do was create a product that was lower priced but still perceived as luxury. And so they tested prices, and this was the interesting thing. At $15, it didn't work. So they were losing money at $15 because people who bought for cheap, who were on a budget, couldn't afford $15 for lotion. People at Neiman Marcus, price signals value. So people who are used to buying nice stuff, they see $15 and they go, this must be junk. I want to reward I want to have beautiful skin. I read that Brad Pitt takes 1 hour every night to go to bed. You know that? He puts on he does so much, like he looks young. If you've seen Brad Pitt in movies, and he says, I work hard for that. I spend 1 hour a day. He has a whole routine. He does like, I think he spends half hour in the morning and it's like an hour a day on exfoliating his face. So Brad Pitt goes and sees a $15 lotion. He's not buying it because he's like, I'm Brad Pitt. I value my face. He buys $500 stuff. So when they did this, they were in no man's land. These people didn't like them and these people didn't like it. So simply changing the price to, I think it was 18 something, 18.50. Right there, it just like took off the whole business. Oil of Olay really massively changed. So remember that pricing is almost the hardest thing to do, but it's almost the most important thing. You can change your whole business. You can have the perfect business model. You can have the theater. You can have the martial arts. You can have petrochemical delivery, whatever that business is. If you get the price, and look, that's not that much difference, right? It's about 20% difference between 15 and 18 bucks in terms of, so if you get the price even 20% wrong, is the difference, right here they said they would be out of business basically, or they would flounder in business. This created a whole new universe for them. So remember, you have to test a lot. Some of you are in businesses that are a little trickier to test, but it's as simple as showing customers 2 different prices. And usually you got to do it legally. You can, if you're doing it on a mass scale, talk to lawyers, but one of the simple ways to do it is make the product slightly different so it's fair. So somebody who pays 15 bucks. But in this case, Oil of Olay, I'm not sure how they were doing it. They were probably just putting it in 2 stores in the city, one at 15 and one at 18. I'm not sure exactly how they did it. But don't be afraid to push, legally push the boundaries of testing your prices. Don't, and that again, Steve Ballmer said the same thing. He was asked if he could start all over as a CEO of Microsoft, what he would do different, what he would advise people starting. He said, get your pricing structure down. It's like pricing matters. Okay? So that's one thing from this book, little side thing, not everybody necessarily takes away, but there's another thing that I liked here. I'll read it to you. He says, as every good marketer knows, awareness precedes trial. So write that down. Now, what that means is there's a reason that Coca-Cola spends a crap load of money because Coca-Cola never has a website you can buy Coca-Cola. All their advertising, all their billboards, all their sponsorships, all their commercials, this commercial they have like spreading love or whatever. Have you seen that one where it's like a kid gets bullied? So what's the one, Zach? Zach thought it was funny. He goes, who does that? A kid's on a subway and he gets a text and it's like, nobody likes you or something. I guess that happens to people. Zach was like, is that real? I mean, I have no idea. Maybe there's cyberbullying where people just get texts like that. I'm sure there is. But then somewhere, someone in the world in the commercial drinks Coca-Cola, it spills or something and it drips on a server and it spreads, and all of a sudden he gets a new text that says everybody likes you or something. So Coca-Cola, it's a weird commercial because if you don't understand marketing, you'll be like, what the heck is this commercial? Like, does that really make me want to buy Coca-Cola? And the answer is yes, for two reasons. It's the availability it's the association bias. If they associate Coca-Cola with good feelings, when you have different drinks in front of you, you will drink them. But the second one, the reason that Coca-Cola does commercials, it's funny, I thought of this when I was a little kid. I remember I was probably 10 or 12, and I saw a McDonald's commercial, and I said to my mom, we were in the car, I can remember, I said, you know what, if I owned McDonald's, I would save all the money and not do any commercials, because everybody already knows who McDonald's is. So I'm like, it's a waste of money. But believe it or not, I was wrong at 10, because In-N-Out Burger in California, which is a very popular, it's more profitable than McDonald's in the state of California, they don't do any advertising. So you might say, see, Ty, you don't need to do that brand awareness. But who would you rather own? In-N-Out or McDonald's, right? McDonald's is maybe the #1 brand in the world. Coca-Cola, Disney, McDonald's. So you got to create awareness for your brand. So whatever you're launching, there's a real simple way to do it now. For the most part, the best way to do this now, and you might have heard this for years, I only think it really started working well in the last 12 months, even though people have been talking about it for 10 years. And that is social media marketing. So people have been talking about this since, 2001. Oh, social media, it didn't work that well. It wasn't ubiquitous enough, meaning it wasn't used by everybody. Now, even your grandma's got an email, maybe even a Facebook. I don't think my grandma has a Facebook, but she's 97. Most people have a Facebook, at least, a Twitter. So one of the things that you want to do, and this seems somewhat common sense. It is common sense, but a little trickier to do, and I'm not going to talk too long on that. I just took that away. I like that saying. No one's going to try my products if they're not aware of them first. And by the way, the rule of thumb used to be, I'm not sure if this still holds, but on average, people, I call it the 7X rule. People have to have seen you about 7 times. They have to have seen your product before they buy it once. Okay, that's why for movies, they're trying to bombard you the couple weeks before it comes out. They want you to see it, not just once. So repetition is the key with these social media campaigns. And it's interesting, on Twitter, I've tested this, Facebook, email marketing. Sometimes I know guys who do email marketing, they have a big supplement company, they have 2 emails and they send them over and over. So like Monday they send email 1, Tuesday, then they rotate back. And I asked them why, and they're like, it makes the most money. Because most people are distracted. So they don't really read it the first time. So after a month of that, they're sure that most people have read the whole thing. So if you're launching something and you know that you got to get people to try what you're doing, you need awareness, use social media, but do it on a repetitive state. So find your optimized, especially like Twitter, okay? Twitter you can post the same thing every month for 10 years. If you find a winner, it gets a lot of engagement, a lot of likes, a lot of retweets, post it again. If you have a newsletter you send to your customers, email or in person, and they like it, send it to them once a quarter, the same one. There's not that. If somebody called you and said, hey, I'm bothered, you're repeating yourself, just be like, oh, I found a lot of people like this one and not everybody saw it. People are busy. So make sure you do 7X. That's a lot. And I'm pretty sure I read that this number has gone up because people are more distracted even more now. 25, okay. Yeah, and it depends on the person. So let's just say anywhere from 7 to 25 times before they become a customer. That means your marketing you need to think of yourself as a repetitive marketer. And even though it'll seem repetitive to you, it's not repetitive to other people, okay? So let's read answer some questions. Then I'm going to assign the next book here. So it can be from this book, questions on this book, or it can be questions on anything in your business. One of the reasons you guys paid more money than other people in the basic programs is I want to give you got access to asking me questions here. Any suggestions on how to decide a good pricing point with working with dynamic pricing, hotels? So first thing I do with pricing, you can start with that VRIN model. Okay, so VRIN is a great way to know pricing. So the more substitutes that people have, the lower your price is going to have to be. Okay, so what I tend to do is I'm actually looking to get into fashion. I've been wanting to get into it for a while, but I'm going to try to pull the trigger this year in 2015 with t-shirts. We'll start with something simple. And so I was just talking to the manufacturer of the shirts, the factory, and I was like, what's the current pricing model? I always start with what are other people doing. It doesn't constrain me. It's not like I'm going to automatically price. So she said, 55% is normal. So something that costs $10 to manufacture sell for like 20 to 25. Okay, so that just gives me a rule of thumb. But then I'm going to go to the VRIN market model, and I'm going to just go, okay, if I make t-shirts, how valuable are t-shirts? 5. I mean, people wear t-shirts a lot. How rare are they? 1. Inimitable. 1. Now, here's where I'm going to try to win. I'm going to put quotes that I've trademarked on them. So if you like mine, it's a little bit harder to substitute. So I'll maybe be able to win in 2 categories. And you, technically I should put rare, I'll put higher because they're mine. And substitutes, I'd put low, like a 1, because you can buy anybody's t-shirts, right? So when you add that together, it's going to be a relatively low number. So let's say it's going to come out as a 5. My t-shirt line on a VRIN score will win 5 in the short term. So that means I'm going to have, that's average. So I'm probably going to price my shirts, like American Apparel t-shirts of the same quality are like 18 to 25 bucks. So I'm going to probably launch at around that price. Now what happens is, as I can make a move here, because when you create brand, all of a sudden it's like sexy brand, then you'll move up the non-substitutable. Brands you cannot. So if you like Ferrari, there's only Lamborghini, and a lot of Ferrari people hate Lamborghini, so they would not think of getting a Lamborghini. If you like Apple computers, there is no substitute for an Apple computer, because Apple people are like in a cult. You bring up using a PC, you might as well talk about shooting their mom, They're like, no. So brand, I'll probably try to move this up. Inimitable, you can't win. It's hard to win. It's easy to start a t-shirt company. This number is going to be, now I can make shirts out of silk or something like that, but so my pricing strategy comes here. If you get a 5, I would say you want to be more around industry norm. If you have some twist on it that makes it super unique, that there's harder to substitute or something, you can go up. Ferrari's a good example. They price very high in the market. Valuable, man, people. Now, the thing is, the masses of people don't consider a Ferrari as valuable as you think. Okay, this is a little tricky one. The average person would rather buy a house for 250 grand. Well, Ferrari is more like 350 grand. Most people consider a house much more valuable than a Ferrari. So a Ferrari, even though it is a valuable car, to the average person, a Ferrari is like a 4 here. Now, rare, it's very high. They don't make many Ferrari. It's hard. When I got my Ferrari, they call it the Ferrari Mafia. I got it from Beverly Hills Ferrari. It's the number 1 most exclusive dealership. They just make up their own numbers. I've never been to a place like that. And it's like, that's whatever whim they have. They're like, we got this one car, but if you don't want it, there's a dude who'll be here in 10 minutes to get it. If I can call, Bill Gates, you want this extra. So rare, it's very rare. Inimitable, very high. Substitutes, like I said, there are Lamborghinis, there are Aston Martins, so you can see Ferrari's score is generally pretty high. A Ferrari's probably going to score at an 8 to a 9, and that's why it's a 350. A Bugatti, would be low here and high here, so it's going to be a $1 million car. So I hope that helps with the pricing game. You can start there, start off your score. If you get a 6 on your product, then I would price it 10 to 20% above market. A 7, and if you have a 10 product, which is very rare, I've never come up with a 10 product. You could price it quadruple. There are people that price stuff. Rockefeller, when he had monopolies, Carnegie, these guys were called the robber barons because they would just mark crap up whatever they wanted. Sometimes OPEC, oil people, they make a lot of money. If you have oil coming out of the ground, you score well in the VRIN. How do you turn a business plan into a good strategy? So one of the things you need to go through in this book that I don't have time to go through here, they call it the cascading strategy. How do you cascade your strategies? It's on, forget what page it is here. It's one of the last chapters. You got to learn how to actually bring it all together. So it's a whole, it's a long list, but the basic difference is between a plan and a strategy is a plan is just you running around with your head chopped off like a chicken. A strategy here's a better way to think of it. A plan is like this. You were 18 years old, you graduated high school, you didn't know what to do with your life. Your mom and dad said, well, our uncle's a dentist, he has a good life. I want you to become a dentist. You go, I don't know if I want to be a dentist, but okay. And so you start to plan. So you go, what's the best dental schools? Okay. Then you go to dental school, you plan by picking the right classes. Then you graduate dental school and you go, all right, I'm going to set up an office here. How many square feet should I get? That's all part of your life plan to be a dentist, but it's not a strategy, because a strategy started out by asking, what is winning for you? So I know a lot of people that become a dentist that don't. In fact, dentists, I read, in the medical profession have the highest suicide rate. A lot of people get pushed into being dentists that don't care about dentistry. Warren Buffett says something interesting. He said, I very rarely have ever met an old person that says to me, Warren, I loved what I do. I loved what I did with my whole life. Every day I went into work, it was what I cared about. Didn't make a ton of money, and I wish I had done it differently, done what I hated, and made a ton of money. He said, I've never heard that before. So a kid and a parent should develop a strategy around winning. And that's the difference. A plan is just running around, living somebody else's life, basically. That's what a plan, or it can be. It generally is. A plan without a strategy is randomness. So when you start, you start a strategy by going, like for me, I see Dan Bilzerian, you can be like, ooh, I need to do that. But that's not winning to me. I've been around that, man. That can get old. Would you recommend using the 96-year-old grandma test for billboard advertising? Yes. Don't forget, there's lots of advertising forms that people are forgetting that still work. A guy was here yesterday who said one of his clients is only using newspapers. He says his client says, I hate internet advertising. He said, every once in a while, I start using the internet and then I realize I'm wasting a year of my life. And he's making $60 million a year from newspaper ads. Okay? About $1 million a month profit out of that. What's your take on doing a CFP as a way to learn how to manage people's money? Is it a good strategy? If you're in that field, you should become a CFP. I think it's a great one. It helps you a lot learn about money. If you're not, a CFP is a certified financial planner. It's a certification you get. If you are not in that industry, you could just read the same books and not necessarily get it. Although it's fine to get it. In America, people spend 2% of their income on supplemental income education. In Asia, they spend 14%. I think you should spend 25%. I call it the quarter principle. Every dollar you have left over after you pay your expenses, take a quarter of it, flip it up in the air, and spend it on supplemental learning. So to get a CFP costs a couple $1,000. If you want to be in finance and financial planning, it's not a bad one. When your business does not use advertisement, how do you apply the 7X rule? Well, you got to ask yourself, why does your business not use advertisement? Even Google uses advertisement, sponsorships. They're in movies, that movie with Vince Vaughn and that horrible movie called The Internship. Not a good movie, but it was good brand awareness. They walk around the Google building. So I don't think you should have a business without marketing and advertising. I can't think of one business. Maybe being The Godfather or something like that if you're in the mob. you're a Russian oligarch, you might not want to be in that business, but oil companies do it. They try to do campaigns to show their social responsibility. I can't think of a business that you wouldn't want to market. Remember, it's in the Peter Drucker 8 objectives. It's 1 is innovation, the product you create. 2 is the marketing. How is this recorded? Yes, it will be put in the vault sometime later this week if you missed some of this. Todd, I'd like to ask some good ways to get people to look at the content you put on YouTube or other social media. If you're posting on social media and YouTube and it's not, no one's watching it, right here. If you're just posting, man, you take Twitter, if you want to learn how to not do marketing, look at almost everybody's Twitter. Look at mine if you want to know how to do it. I have one of the most engaged Twitters in the world, without a doubt. Per follower, I have insane. Now, there's people that have Kanye West and stuff get more engagement, but sometimes I'll get 400 or 500 favorites. That's very rare. You know, I'm probably in the top 1,000,000% or 10,000,000% of Twitter. So I post things that I've learned. There's a type of kind of social meme that people want to hear. It's rare to do it. Its inimitable is low. A lot of people could copy, but one good thing about people are proud and they'll rarely copy you. It's hilarious. The only people who will copy you are the smart people, and there's not that many smart people. So non-substitutable, a little bit lower, but so if your social media is getting no following, it's a you problem usually. Okay? Look at the stuff that goes viral on YouTube. I was looking at one where a guy parks a Lamborghini on the side of the street in South Beach, and he sits there and he goes like this. He puts his leg against it, and when random girls walk by, he goes, "Hey, ladies." And they turn around, they see he's on this nice car, and they're like, "You want to go to lunch?" And about 70% of the women are like, "Sure, let's go." And then he gets off the Lamborghini and he walks to a junky car he has parked and gets in. And almost every set of women go, "Oh, whatever, we're going to keep going." And at the very end, one girl goes, "Oh, okay." And she doesn't care about the car and gets in. That video went viral. It's valuable. It's funny. People value good entertainment. It's rare. I've never seen a video like that. Whoever thought that up, smart. Inimitable, I've seen a lot of people copying it. That's why that video will never make, it will never get 1 billion views, because people will copy it. Okay? So it's not a 10 idea. Okay? Non-substitutable, it's very easily to substitute. People like to watch other stuff on YouTube. So its score is very high here. For a while it did, and so it got whatever millions of views. I thought that was a cool thing. There's all kinds of cool things. So you got to dial in your social. If it's failing, like I said, it's a you problem. Stuff goes viral that people consider valuable. Make sure you always start with this one. This is where most people get it wrong. They do stuff that they consider as valuable. What was the name of the smaller book that you covered? So this is just how to write a good business plan. You could get it from Harvard. Harvard actually emailed me this week and said, "Did you recommend this book?" Because I sell the most books for Harvard. They don't give me a commission, unfortunately. But what's a good ROI when you pay to use advertising? Good ROI, so return on your investment, never go 18% is a good return. Because it is a good return for some things, but it's always this is what Warren Buffett says. Good investment gives a high return on tangible assets in relation to all the other opportunities you could have used the money for. So let's say you do advertising, you spend $100,000 in advertising, and you make $118,000 back. It's a pretty good ROI. You made your money back, plus you made another 18%. So that would be considered a winning campaign. What if you could have taken the 100,000 like Jeff Bezos did, and he started Amazon with 70 grand, and you would have made $42 billion. One gave you an 18% return, one gave you an almost infinite return. So it's in proportion to the other opportunities that you have. That, by the way, is straight from that book, ManQ. So you got to understand opportunity costs, and that's the rarest thing. The only people that I meet that have made opportunity costs instinctual or that I know of are dudes like Michael Milken, Carl Icahn. When you read those guys' books, that's all they thought about all day. Relationship to the other things it can do. Most people when you meet, you're like, how's your business going? Oh, it's going great. It's the best thing I ever do. Oh, I'm so glad I do it. And I'm like, but what if you could live in an alternate universe where you would have done something else? You know, before you pat yourself on the back for what you're doing, remember, there's one rare, inimitable, valuable, and non-substitutable thing that you have. It's called your years of your life. You get those bad boys wrong, there is no substitute. There is no imitation. There is no replacement. It's just, and there's nothing more valuable than your life. So when you live your life, when you spend your money, it's always in proportion to other opportunities you have. Charlie Munger says marriage isn't the ultimate opportunity cost. There will always be someone else you can marry. So when you marry somebody, this is his advice. It's a little bit too logical. It's not the most romantic thing. It's not going to get a 50 Shades of Grey movie nomination or whatever, but he says, I married the best girl that I could find that would have me back. Because there were better girls, but he's like, but they didn't like me. So it's a non-sexy, romantic way to think about love, but you know what? That's what everybody does anyway. They're just not brave enough to admit it. So everything you do, you can't look at your wife or husband and go, best investment I ever did. Because what if you could have married, I don't know, who's your greatest hero? What if you could have married, you know, Martin Luther King Jr. or something like that, right? That'd be better than marrying, you know, Bob, the boring guy. So I think, again, it's a scary way to think about life. In this book about Carl Icahn, it's not just about Carl Icahn, it's about all these guys in the 80s and 90s. They go, there's been few people that ever think like those guys. They think, you know how people say think out of the box? Not many people think out of the box. What I just told you is an out of the box, scary way to think about life. And even if you keep some of your old way, which is more romantic and stuff, try to incorporate a little bit of what the smart people do too. You're never going to go wrong. You will never be 80 and look back and be like, you know what? I built my life around what the smartest people in the world thought, and my life's been hell ever since. It doesn't work that way, man. You build your life around the smartest people in health. They're not going to all agree on every single minor point, whether you should eat the yolk of the egg, but if you follow the gist, you'll be just great. You want to make more money? Follow the gist of the smartest people in the world. You want to have a good social life? It's the same thing. So a couple more questions that I'm going to give the next book. I got to grab it in the other room here. Any tips on books for improving memory? Yes, I will give you my tip. You need to teach to somebody. It can be to your younger brother, your staff. If you have even one employee, you should have a meeting once a week where you teach what you learned in the book as part of training. Even for one employee. If you have no employees, YouTube yourself. Okay? Send it to your siblings. Hi, this is Alex, the business language learning guy. I found that valuable is the only variable that I can prove. I got a 6. So if you're teaching languages, there's ways you can increase all of these. So there's a lot of companies teaching language, but let's say you're the only company. I think you told me that you teach business people in Spain or something like that. Business vocabulary. That's more rare. There's not a lot of companies. You can always up this by becoming more niche. Okay? Spoke about dissociation bias, which suggests that marketing should be positive focused. Previously, you spoke about marketing through fear. Okay, my offering helps people make better choices, but I'm hesitant to use the fear concept. I was just here with a guy, a consultant. I have lots of different, I put my money where my mouth is. Just like I tell you guys to spend your money on knowledge, I do too. I just spent money on a guy that was here 3 hours. I got to write him a check for 10 or 20,000 bucks for just 3 hours, and then he's gone. So it's expensive, but I always make my money back. Money spent on supplemental knowledge on the right people always pays back. And we were talking about this. He's one of the top marketers in the world. He's sold billions of dollars worth of stuff on the internet. He says his favorite is fear. You know, I tend to do better with reward, but association bias is a much lighter bias. So Coca-Cola, by the way, leads with reward. They pour tons of sugar in a liquid. Your body is 70% water. Your body wants water. You combine it with sugar, which sugar is one, very few things penetrate the blood-brain barrier. So your brain has a barrier. It keeps things out. It's how you don't die, okay? So most things can't make it into your brain, but sugar is like cocaine. It passes right through the blood-brain barrier. So Coca-Cola has water, which you need, and that's about all it is. If you look at the thing, it's like water and sugar. So the reward bias is built into the product of Coca-Cola. It's an addicting product. It's the only drink, by the way, that doesn't satiate your thirst. Root beer satiates your thirst. You cannot drink 10 root beers. You'll be like, I'm sick. But you can drink 10 Cokes. Ty, I'm an investor in real estate. How can I make my VRIN number higher? Again, with real estate, so in real estate is a knowledge-based business and a capital-based business. So the value, you're not, this one's less important in real estate because you're buying a building from somebody. So the customer is the person who has the house, apartment, and they're selling to you. It's very valuable. They're wanting to sell it. So this one you don't have to work on. Rare, I would work on building up rare skills. So like you know how to accurately assess a price and you have more cash. Getting access to more capital, being better at convincing bankers to give you money, private investors, that's very rare. There's a lot of real estate investors, but most of them are tapped out. Michael Milken said create a war chest. He would create war chests for businesses of $400 to $600 million. This is in the 80s. If Michael Milken came behind you, you know, you were rare. There's very few businesses that have $600 million in cash. And it was called a blind pool. A blind pool means they would raise the money before they knew what they wanted to do with it. So when they walked in your door and said, we want to buy your business, they're famous for having a letter called a highly confident letter. And that was a scary letter that used to scare companies because they would do corporate raids, LBOs, leverage buyouts, they call them, where they would, let's say you own a company that's publicly traded, they would come in, corporate raiders, and buy your company from, you know, like Steve Jobs used to be at Apple, and then he got kicked out of his own company for like 10 years. I think it was almost 10 years he was kicked out. It's a little different in his case, but that's similar to what Carl Icahn, these guys used to do. And they would do it without even having the money raised. They had a letter, and they would send you a letter as the CEO, and they're like, we're highly confident we can buy out your company. And that letter used to strike fear in people because when they said we're highly confident, 100% of the time, they would buy you out. So that's a competitive advantage to have capital in real estate. Hi, Ty, I was able to make a new website, adding lots of new knowledge I've learned from conversions, but how do you get more traffic? I have an Instagram blog and get around 100 visits. Still working on becoming more well-known. I tried to do Facebook ad, put a really nice picture, paid 20 bucks for one day, not working out. So on your ads, any kind of ad, you got to ask yourself, would you click on it? This is the simplest way. People make ads all the time that they would never click on. I've got that out of my system, but my staff sometimes, I ask them, like, there's somebody who works for me is making some ads. And I said, would you ever click on this ad? And they're like, no, but I think other people will. I'm like, no. If it fails, don't sell something you wouldn't buy, really. Of course there's exceptions to that, but I just don't like it. And I'm known as one of the top marketers in the world, so I'm telling you, this is my simplest advice to you. Don't ever get, like, you know why I'm gonna get in t-shirt business? Because I wear t-shirts a lot because I live in California. So I'm gonna make a shirt that I would wear. And almost all good businesses are built around. Richard Branson's like, I need an airplane. So he chartered a plane. Then he's like, other people want this. Boom. That's where Virgin Airline came from. He loved magazines. He liked protesting the Vietnam War. He made a magazine about that. He loved music. He signed the Sex Pistols and all these people back in the 80s and made Virgin Music. He wants to go to space. He went to space in a balloon. And now he's like, I'm going to take an upgrade. I'm going to make myself a spaceship. So don't get in the spaceship game if you don't like spaceships. I'll never be in the spaceship game. I have no interest in going to space. I think we're better off using what we have here. We could put a lot of people in this thing if we organized it better. But so that's my thing. He can do his thing. And the one Amish guy, I asked an Amish guy, how do you live in a world where so many people are different than you? You don't have electricity. You marry, you know, your high school sweetheart. You have 10 to 15 kids. You use horses instead of cars. Do you ever feel weird? And he said, Amish are very wise. He said, my dad told me something, Ty. He said, it takes a lot of different people to make the world go around. So what his dad taught him was, you be Amish, let other people be their thing, and it'll hopefully all balance out in the end. So anyway, back to the marketing thing. Market, sell products you would buy, make ads you would click on. And when you're really honest, you'll delete 90% of the ads you make. You know how I came up with the Lamborghini commercial? I got more honest with myself. We tried all these different commercials, and I was like, what would I actually click on? And it just hit me. I was like in the shower on a Sunday. I think it was January 20th or something. And I was like, I know what I would click on. Lamborghinis. Dudes love freaking Lamborghini. If you have any interest in a car, even more than the word Ferrari, Lamborghini will get your attention. You see it in hip hop songs, Lamborghini Mercy. It doesn't go, Volkswagen Mercy. It's Lamborghini Mercy. People go. So I was like, but then I said, but if I saw a commercial that was just about a Lamborghini, it would bore me. So I was like, what would be more interesting? And I was like, books with Lamborghini. I would click on that in a heartbeat. And so I said, let me test it. There was no evidence that other people would click on it. But now it's almost the most clicked on ad in the history of civilization, literally. It's gotten a lot of clicks. We're almost past, I just checked, it'll pass half a billion in 5 months views in 4 months, or 5 months, sorry. So that came from just using that one marketing heuristical decision-making tree. Would I do it? I would click on that, and I got that, by the way. I wish I could claim it as my own genius, but it's not. One of my mentors, Alan Nation, he told me, he said, Ty, the beauty of the modern world is there's so many people, no matter what you come up with that you like, probably at least 1 million other people will like it. You come up with something weird. You only eat fruit or something. One of my brothers got on a thing, he only ate bananas and stuff. Literally, and guess what? I found out through him, there's a whole undercurrent of fruitarians. Have you ever met a fruitarian? No. Until my brother. But guess what I found out? Whatever weird idea you have, there's a million there's fruitarian bodybuilders, there's fruitarian, I mean, you pick bizarre stuff, and there's stuff out. Fruitarian yogis. I'm sure there's yoga people that only ate fruit, and they got a fan page on Facebook probably. So don't be afraid to go niche like that. All right. So I want to leave with one thing, and then I got to go grab the book that I want to do. But I'm going to leave. I want you to spend 2 minutes to wrap up today. Okay. You got to lock it in your brain, or else you're not going to remember this stuff. I want you to write the one thing. I don't want you to take away 2 things from today. Remember that. Man who chases 2 rabbits catches none. Mr. Confucius said that. So of all the things we talked about, if you could just read a book and remember one thing for the rest of your life from each book you read, you'll be good. Just one thing. Then move on to another book. There's 130 million books. You'll be busy the rest of your life. So what is the one thing that you learned from today, and how will you apply it over the next 2 weeks? Because we do these in 2 weeks increments. So not this Tuesday, next Tuesday. What's a tangible thing you're going to do? Okay? So I'm going to set the timer for 2 minutes. I'm going to grab the book, and I'll be back, and then I'll give you the next week's book. All right, guys, I'm finding it here. I'm actually having to get a librarian is my next person I'm going to hire. It's that Heidi Halverson one that I just literally had. It's a green one. Here, I'll pull it up on my phone. That's what I'll do. All right, so this book, just to set you guys up for what you're about to learn, yes. Okay, this book is very important. This is by, she's a Columbia Business School professor, and she's written a lot of books. This is a book, it's not too hard to read, but it is don't mistake the simplicity for the importance. So we'll focus in here. It's by Heidi Halverson. No One Understands You and What to Do About It. And this book is massive in terms of understanding marketing, you as a leader in the business, how to relate to customers, how to lead your organization, and public speaking. This is a lot about public speaking, a lot about sales. So basically, I'll kind of set this up by saying the way you see yourself in your marketing when you stand up in front of your staff or customers is only about 60% correlated with how they see you. So some people are really, really good at projecting what they want. So, for example, there's this kind of slang term called RBF. You know what RBF is? Women say it about each other. Resting bitch face. That's where some girls say, hey, Ty, I don't know why, before people meet me, they think I'm a bitch. And I'm like, why? They're like, well, because they say I have a resting bitch face. Like, I'll be sitting there perfectly content, but I sit there like, and I'm just daydreaming about happy thoughts, but other people perceive me as a bitch. And the power of first impressions for your business and for you personally, this is definitely a book I wish I'd read at 18, 16. So it goes through, this is a Harvard book, by the way, too, even though she teaches at Columbia. So it goes through, for example, how powerful people see you. So powerful people do not think the same as the masses. It's a book full of practical stuff, and it's also a book full of stuff about marketing, because marketing is about perception, perception, not always reality. If you don't believe me, go watch the movie Entourage that just came out. That is a movie about perception, not reality. So I will see you in 2 weeks, and I hope that, I'll just look at these real quick, see what you guys put down as your main takeaway. Anybody here want to say their main takeaway?
Using the VRIN model before I make any social media post.
Okay. Mark said using this VRIN model to analyze his social media posts before he posts. Somebody said strategy equals choices. Integrated peer review to add that. Yeah, we fixed the sound. You didn't miss much. I was just basically saying what you're going to get in the book. So the book is better. Strategy is a choice. Do things in life to minimize regret. Raise your VRIN average. What book describes Michael Milken's sleep schedule? He didn't do 9 p.m. naps. That's what I do. But the book is called Predator's Ball. Predator's Ball. VRIN will probably be the best thing, be the thing I learned the most, and give me an idea of what to work on next. Increasing the V with your marketing. Being more consistent. Focus on what segment to play in. Without a strategy, you fail. Planning is just random chaos. Yes. Very important. My one takeaway is the VRIN. Sit down with my business partners to discuss how to increase averages. Turn plans into strategies. Cool. Lots of them here. I don't even have time to read them all. Go through the 8 objectives. If you haven't seen the vault, there should be a link somewhere if you're on your iPad. Click around. If you have any questions, we have chat on the website. So if you have ever problems, you can chat or call the phone number. My team will help you. Find the vault of past calls. The money you spent to be in this program, it's worth it just to get the vault. Trust me, the vault has a ton. I don't know how many talks are in there, Ben? 40? He's got headset. There's probably 40 books we've gone through that you can listen to. So download the audio next time you go watch the one where I talk about Peter Drucker's 8 objectives. That wasn't too long ago, the Drucker, Essential Druckers. Okay? Talk to you guys soon, and make sure you don't just hear, but you also make this stuff part of your life. Okay? See you in 2 weeks.